Yes, sir, bud.
Well, I want to welcome everybody. My name is Bob Berg. Oh, I'm sorry, I got confused. Actually, my name would be Bob Berg, but Bob had some internet problems. Comcast cut off his cable, and that's a lot of alliteration for anxious anchorman. So, my name is John David Mann, and I'll be your host. Before I introduce my two esteemed guests, I want to read a brief excerpt from this book we're talking
Oh,
about.
are you going to put us to sleep already? The first 2 minutes?
Maybe yourself, but the rest are listening with avid attention. We just know this to be true. So here comes. I'm going to read a few words from the forward because I like me reading my own writing. I, Jeff and Bill asked me to write the forward for this book, and I couldn't say no. I could have said no, but they were holding a gun at the time, so I did write that forward, and it starts out like this. It's easy to write a parable. Wait, scratch that. It's easy to write a bad parable. It's hard to write a good one. And a great one, that's fiendishly difficult. And before I tell you about what makes this a great parable, although I think a lot of you guys already know this, let me introduce the two reasons that that is true. And they are the two co-authors of this book. I'm going to make my introductory remarks ridiculously brief because we want to get down to questions and we want to hear from them. Bill and Jeff have both been educating people about how things work for over 3 decades. Bill I'll tell you how well known Bill is as a financial advisor and as a teacher of financial stuff. The most high class, high value individual on the planet that I know personally happens to be a guy named Nito Cobain, president of High Point University in North Carolina. And Nito is just like the classiest gentleman on the planet. And I was on the phone with him about a week ago, and he said, "So I hear your friend Bill has written a book." And I was like, "My friend Bill?" He says, "Yes, Bill Cates. I've known him forever. Wonderful man. Excellent book. I'm going to promote that book." I was like, wow. If you're on Nito Cobain's radar, that says a lot.
Yeah, that's good.
So Bill is wildly and widely known as an authority on financial matters, and his mission is to put in your hands, in ordinary people's hands, the tools for making practical financial decisions that better their lives. Jeff West, I started a coaching program for writers a couple of years ago. Jeff was the first person that signed up. In fact, he bugged me to start it before it even happened. And the moment I opened his doors, he was sitting there waiting with some money in his hand, saying, "Can I sign up? Can I sign up?" And he's been my biggest champion in the class, and he's been an extraordinary case history to watch. I said this in the forward to the book, but his first parable won the bronze medal of the Axiom Business Award, very esteemed business award. His second parable won the silver medal of that same organization. His third book won, yes, you guessed it, the gold medal in the Axiom Business Awards. And now here comes number four, co-written with Bill Cates. Um, and I got to watch Bill working on this, Jeff working on this book in the course of our program, and it was really, really fun to watch the early drafts and watch him go through the process of taking some good ideas, some good writing, and working it and working it and working it to make it better and better and better. Not a lot of people have the patience or the skill set to take a first draft and turn it into a polished gem, but Jeff has those skills. And Jeff and Bill together is an unbeatable combination, and that's the book that you're all holding in your hands. So, gentlemen, start your engines. I want to start off, and before we get going with questions, for you all attending, put your questions if you have them in the little Q&A box. You'll find that at the bottom of your Zoom screen. It's the little question mark inside the quote box. If you click on that, it'll open up a Q&A box. Put your questions there, and they'll stay up there in the screen for us, and we will do our best to get to all of them.
Hey, John, before you ask us questions,
Yes.
I want to tell everybody why you. So, for those who don't know, John David Mann, he's the co-author of the Go Giver series with Bob Berg. Millions of copies sold. Great book, great movement they started with the Go Giver. He's a co-author of The Latte Factor with David Bach, very prolific writer and financial. He's also a novelist in his own right. I was going to say read, but I've actually listened to Steel Fear, Cold Fear, and Blind Fear. I think I get them right. There we
You
go.
got him.
And it was the gentleman Jonathan McLean who read John David Mann's books that he turned this on to him, and so Jonathan McLean actually put our book brought our book to life in the audio. We can talk more about that later, but I just want to let you know this guy John David Mann. He's no slouch when it comes to best-selling, million seller books and writing chops. So back to you,
I
John.
Yeah,
appreciate that.
let's come to me first.
I appreciate that, Bill.
That's enough
But
about
I guess
me. Let's
Jeff's
talk
going to
about me.
butt in, so go for it, Jeff.
Yeah, just more for you guys to know why John. John is literally my favorite author. I guess I've read, if I haven't read all of the books, I've read most of them for sure. He has also been a dear mentor and a dear friend to me. I remember even before he was doing the class, we have a class we go to, Writing Mastery Mentorship. Even before that, he would come through Texas and he was kind enough to give me his time early on in me writing. I was working on the book with Lisa Wilbur then. And he has given me his time, he's given me his attention, and he's one of these rare people that can, I've seen it in musicians where they could really play greatly, but they couldn't teach worth a flip, or they could teach, but they couldn't play. John is that rare bird who does both to the highest level. And I'm grateful to you, John, for helping us with this today, and eternally grateful for how you've helped me elevate my writing.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you all for coming. This has been wonderful. Um, I've gotten a whole lot more press than I need to have in this particular event. Thank you both. Um, and yeah, I wasn't kidding when I said that in the forward. It is easy to write a parable. It's hard to write a good parable, but to write a parable that stands the test of time and that goes into the hands of hundreds of thousands of people because it's both practical information that people can use in their lives that's new to them, and that's also crafted in a story that makes you feel the people on the page, that makes you root for them, that makes you cry with them, laugh with them, and cheer them at the end when they pass their finish line because it becomes your finish line. That's not just a skill, that's an art. And so you guys have really put that down. It's been a joy to watch the book come together, and I'm honored to be the one who gets to midwife all these questions for you guys.
Oh boy.
So I know how I met you all. Let's start off this way with a simple question, which is, how did this book come to pass? How did you guys come to collaborate on this story?
Yeah, I guess I'll start with this one myself. Essentially, I had a book idea in the back of my head. It was on the back burner, and the working title was "You Earn What You Believe." And it was really about in terms of money, if you want to earn more money, make more money, you've got to shift your mindset around money. The basic principle behind this book is this, that when you encounter a challenge, a problem, you got a complaint, something in life, right? Uh, you can look at the strategy to solve it. You can look at the tactics to solve it. And sometimes it's a good idea to take a step back and actually look at what you believe about the situation, about yourself, about the other people, about the context, economy, whatever it is, whatever the context is. Because sometimes if you have limiting beliefs, mistaken beliefs, you won't see the strategies and tactics that are available to you to solve the problem. So that was the germ of the idea. And I actually was at a National Speakers Association convention several years ago, and another parable book author, John Gordon, who wrote The Energy Bus, another quality parable book. There are a lot of terrible parable books out there, but that's a good one. And he was talking about it, and I said, all right, that it's time for me to take that off the back burner. All right. So fast forward a couple of weeks, I called Bob Berg and I said, Bob, this guy, John David Mann, who helped you write The Go Giver, tell me about him. I've got a parable book idea. And he says, you can't afford him. I'm not going to tell the number he quoted, but I said, yeah, you're probably right. It would be hard to justify that ROI.
Well, what's in that suitcase behind you? But anyway, go ahead.
Well, people are asking about the money, by the way, and we should talk about it. My personal trainer, Todd, actually put that in the Q&A. We'll talk about that. Anyway, so he said, but I do have someone for you. And at the time, he and Jeff were writing Streetwise to Saleswise, their parable book that they did together.
Yeah.
And so Jeff and I we just had similar enough demeanors. We just kind of knew right away we were going to be able to trust each other. And I gave him the idea, and then he brought a chapter, to me, and it didn't take long to know that we had something good here. And that's essentially how we came together.
I want to ask more how you work together and what that process was like.
Yep.
But before we get there, before I nail you, Jeff, what was the central idea of the book? Why did you write the book? What did you hope to accomplish with it?
You're
And I guess
talking,
that's for you, Bill, or Jeff,
yeah.
Yeah.
whoever wants
Well,
to take that.
I'll start. Then Jeff, you chime in, please.
Okay.
The, First of all, my mission is this, or my belief is this: everybody deserves to make educated financial decisions that are in their best interest. Every human on this planet deserves that. Uh, can money buy happiness? Not true happiness, although it does have a good influence in that. We know that. And it's just not about greed and not necessarily about getting rich or wealthy, although that could be a byproduct. It's financial stability, it's financial dignity,
Hmm.
uh, throughout. Okay, so that was kind of the seed, and I knew that again, a lot of people have mistaken beliefs. I have mistaken beliefs and unhelpful emotions around money. So a lot of that, had to come out in some way to help others, right? So that's what I've been in the business for 33 years. Is I learn and then I teach, and I learn what I teach. And sometimes I'm teaching what I need to learn at the same time. And anybody who's in the business of consulting and speaking and writing, especially nonfiction, knows exactly what I'm talking about. Um, and so that was kind of, and I just wanted to get a book in people's hands and get them to wake up, first of all, to become aware of their own potentially limiting beliefs, mistaken assumptions, unhelpful emotions, counterproductive actions. At least become aware,
Yeah.
and then eventually to start writing a new money story, because the money story you're telling yourself right now is pure fiction, or mostly. And then it's time to rewrite that with a little more reality. So that's kind of where I came from. But Jeff, why don't you chime in on that?
For me, uh, as soon as Bill started talking about kind of what his goals were with the book and how he wanted, just basically what he just said, how he wanted to be able to change how people tell themselves stories about money and destroy some of those myths, and then teach some of the right habits that will change their future. The first thing that popped in my mind was twofold. Number one was how many people that I've seen where money problems destroyed their relationships,
Yeah.
personal, they destroyed marriages, destroyed companies. And it was a lot of it was because they had such mistaken beliefs, they felt like they could never crawl out of that. And the second thing was realizing how valuable having the right information would have been for me when I started off in my career. Now, I've done well financially, but I would have done so much better had I learned these things early. And so it was an immediate attraction for me. And my goal in writing any parable is I want to write a story that people tell me later I couldn't put it down. It surprised me. It kept me engaged.
Mhm.
I want that. I want to write characters that are so doggone flawed that they're just fascinatingly human.
Hmm.
Everybody can relate to them, and instead of teaching the story, basically having them live the story. And so it was just an immediate attraction on my end. In my part of the not dedication, but the preface or whatever I put in there, as soon as Bill asked me, I probably didn't even let him finish the sentence before I said yes, because it was that strong of an attraction for me.
I've just speaking as a parable writer, I've written parables with a handful of other people, and I've also, to be honest, turned down a couple of handfuls of other potential parables with other
That's because they
people.
couldn't afford you, John.
No, and honestly, when the reason was, I was going to say, because you need for the story to work, for the partnership to work, you need to have that kind of click that you just saw with these two guys. You need to have a sort of alignment of core values and mission and your personal passion about the topic at hand,
Yeah.
and that doesn't always happen. When it happens, that's the makings of a great partnership, and I see it in you guys. So how did that idea and that partnership turn into a bank heist story inside a bank vault? Like, where did that come from? I did
Well,
not see that coming.
yeah, and I'll take that, and then Jeff elaborate because he's the one who really brought it to life. Uh, so here's most parable books. Um, you can see the ending coming. Now that's not always bad because we all see TV shows, movies where we kind of know what's going to happen, but we just want to see how it's going to happen, right? So there's
Right.
nothing wrong with that. They're also usually pretty happy-go-lucky. There's tension because there's got to be tension, otherwise there's no story to resolve or teaching to be made. But I just wanted a little more. I wanted something with some twists and turns. I wanted something with a little more of an edge. I wanted something that people actually wanted to read the story and get the message. So most people are big on the message. I was big on that, but the story too.
Good for
And,
you.
and so somewhere along the line, I was thinking where this should take place. And I had a couple ideas, and I landed on bank robbery because money, bank, okay, there's tension there. Now, the good news, Jeff did an incredible job by putting in some humor almost immediately. So there's lots of comic relief too. By the way, when we were doing this and we were talking about hostages, this was just when the terrible situation in Israel happened and the hostages were taken, and so I was a little sensitive to that. Unfortunately, there's still problems going on, but we won't get into that. But it's a little less, that word hostage that doesn't have quite so much bite as it had to it then. But we also learned, and this shows up in the book, and I'll turn it over to Jeff, uh, from our interviews with a real live hostage negotiator. And by the way, most of the book is representative of real stories, real people, and we can share that as we go. Um, they don't call them hostages. Hostage negotiators don't call them hostages, and that shows up in the book. And so a lot of what we did is based on the reality. So I had that idea. I gave Jeff a bunch of interviews that I had done. I've done over 100 now, money interviews. Some of the folks I interviewed are on this call with us. And I said, all right, can you work with this? And then bam, these characters came to life in this bank. And there's some. So Jeff, why don't you just take it from there? I don't want to take it all.
One of the most fun things for me about the entire collaboration is is the research that we did paid off immensely,
Yeah.
both in tactics and things that would make someone interested in reading a book of this nature in the first place, but also in those just little tidbits that are just gold for me when I start writing, when I've got little things to think about. And as I began to just kind of map out the characters, Bill and I wanted to make sure that we address certain mistaken beliefs about money. And the only way that you can really do that, you can't just say, okay, on a board, okay, this is a wrong belief about money and teach it. So what we did was we gave the characters themselves the flaws in the scenario so that they lived it, so that we could take them on the journey of how to fix that in front of the reader. And the biggest challenge for me was as we started to talk about this with the whole idea of a bank robbery. It's the first time that I'm aware of an entire parable being set in one day in the middle of a bank robbery. And
Yeah.
so that certainly
Safe to
presented
say.
challenges, but it was such a blast. And collaborating with Bill on this has just been just one of the great experiences of a lifetime. It really has.
Can you give us like a couple of just maybe even little examples of, you said, Bill, that some of this stuff is representative of real life hostage situations or robbery situations. Can you give us a little sort of peek behind the curtain of some of that research that you did and some of those?
Yeah. In fact, the first thing I'm going to do is play probably about a 15-second, give or take, video.
Awesome.
Let me share that, and I'll set it up for you. You can see that now. So Shirley Davis is a colleague of mine. She's a professional speaker, consultant. Uh, Once upon a time, she was a bank teller, a bank manager. She worked in a bank, and I interviewed her for the book as someone who'd experienced in a bank robbery. Jeff can tell about another. I don't know if you want to give that away, though, Jeff. You may not want to give that gentleman away. But anyway, let me just play this. This is an excerpt from the that I excerpted from the interview. I'm not going to play the whole interview, but just you'll see how compelling this is. Hopefully, it's going to work fine.
And I was grabbed by the third person who put the gun to my head. The next thing that I remember him saying was, no one move. He said, everyone hit the floor. And if anyone moves, I'm going to blow her brains out.
So
With me.
yeah. So let me stop that. Stop it. All right, there we go. So that's, I mean, wow.
Whoa. Whoa.
Right? So that's one example.
That never happened in The Go-Giver.
No, it didn't. Nor should it. Nor should it. It's different tone, different story.
Ideas.
Jeff, I don't know if you want to give away your guy that you interviewed that was in a bank robbery.
Well, in addition to the hostage negotiator, I had a friend who was actually in a bank robbery, and he was. I'm not going. If you've already read the book, everything you find out about Alden and the robbers themselves, how they're dressed and all that, comes from the fact that my friend was in a bank robbery and there were some similarities there. And so I'm not going to go any further than that because I want to keep some of it secret. But
Yeah.
one of the fun things in writing this, John, has been the idea that we knew we wanted to have a certain amount of intensity and edge so that it would grab people and they wouldn't let go of the story.
Sure.
But at the same time, in a parable, I didn't want to leave it that heavy, neither did Bill. And so the ability to write the comedic moments that people will tell me later that it made them laugh out loud while they're reading a book. Yeah, I like to make people do that in the middle of an airport, especially. Just if I can make them laugh out loud or cry in an airport, I feel like I've done my job. But it was a great challenge.
I got a text last night at like 10 o'clock from a friend, a kind of a new friend, who was listening to the book. And she says, I'm listening to the book. I don't want to stop. And I'm thinking, okay, yeah, all right, that's good.
That's good
By the way, Jeff, your friend Don King says, pretty sure neither Jeff nor Bill drew on their experience robbing a bank.
Or so we say.
There's $1 million behind me that back to the bank by 3 o'clock before they realize it's missing.
Hopefully, they're not watching this broadcast.
Yes, exactly. No DNA.
Hey, I just want to give a quick plug for that audio. Bill mentioned Jonathan McLean, who's the narrator, the audio actor who actually did this book, and I was so blown away and thrilled that you guys went and got Jonathan to do this because he is an extraordinary voice actor. And so here's what I want to say. Any of you out there who have read the book or who have the book in your hand, you have the paper copy or you have the ebook, I want to heartily recommend that after you've read it, go back and get the audiobook because I tell you, it is so freaking entertaining. The man is such a one-man band of voices that to hear that thing come to life is really, I mean, you will laugh a lot when you hear that. And speaking of laughing, I got to ask you, Jeff, and Bill, if you want to chime in as well, this balance of humor and intensity, as you said, Jeff, tension, suspense, humor, actual mortal danger, or the suggestion of mortal danger, along with all this information. I mean, speak a little bit about what it was like to try to get that balance right, because I know full well how easy it is to do information dumps and have it just be boring. And there isn't a boring page in this book. So how did you guys pull that off? What was that like?
Take it, Jeff.
Thank you for the compliment. I take it. I take it very importantly when you say that. So thank you.
It meant
it was a balance for me in the writing process. It was about creating the dialogue because, and Bill would keep me in check at times because what I will do sometimes is as I'm putting everything out there on the page, as you well know, because it's what you've taught me to do. We get everything out there on the page, the first draft, and we start going through it. Then we'll refine it.
Right.
But the balance of humor, when the intensity of the scene would get more, then I would throw in the balance of the humor because I wanted the reader to realize this was going to be fun too. Yes, it was going to be a little bit intense. Yes, they're going to learn things, but it was going to be fun. And then as we started teaching the principles, There's one character in particular. I have to tell you, I designed him after me, probably in my late teens, early 20s. It was a character named
Is that
Is
Dylan.
that Dylan? Dylan?
And I made him just enough of
That
a
was you?
smartass to get him in trouble.
That was you? Oh, I didn't realize that was autobiographical, that character.
To a certain degree, it really was.
That is
And
funny. I did not know that.
oh,
We had Mark asked what was one of the bigger challenges, and this you just hit it with this
Yeah.
is the
right.
balance of suspense, the balance of humor, the balance of information. I think this has more humor than an average novel would have because it's not a novel, um, and it's not meant to be a novel. You don't have the time to go into the character depth and describing the scenes as you do in a novel. Although Jeff did a pretty damn good job of that. Um, Nonetheless, so that was that balance, right? And there's chapters where there's a mix of some tension and suspense and some humor, and then a teaching. Uh, we got another comment from Todd. He appreciated the diversity of the characters, which was our intention
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely.
And I just a little funny thing to I don't know, poke Jeff on a little bit. We were thinking about quotes, how a lot of books will start a chapter with a quote, or there'll be an empty page that has a quote. And so originally we were going to quote other people, well-known Warren Buffett or whomever.
yeah.
And so the first set of quotes he sent to me, I said to him, did you realize that all these quotes are dead white men?
Yes, they
And
were.
and he goes, no, I didn't even realize. I said, well, we can do better. So
Who
what
knew
we
dead white men could be so articulate?
well, yeah, I know. I mean, exactly, and so yeah, I mean that the whole diversity of characters, diversity of everything. We were very cognizant. I
Right.
was particularly very cognizant of that. And thanks for noticing, Todd. What we ended up doing, by the way, is rather than trying to pull quotes from other people out there, which would kind of pull people out of the book a little bit, right? Subtly.
Yep.
Um, Now all the quotes are from Alden Beckett, who is the main guide, the hero, if you will, of the story, the financial advisor in the story, sort of, kind of, more to it than just that. So we made it all come from him. So that was all his wisdom coming forward.
Is
So that's how we.
Alden Beckett based on even in part on anybody that either you guys know, a mentor, a friend, a teacher, anybody, or is he just basically someone you created for the story?
Well, in this case, he was a little bit of a mix of personalities that I have encountered, including some of me. But the way I saw Alden in my mind as I wrote the story is I'm thinking, okay, how would Bill explain this to somebody? Because I've got a lot of respect for Bill and what he does. And so it was, how would Bill explain the idea that, yeah, even if you got your stuff together, you need a good financial professional that you can work with, that you'll develop that relationship with, that mentorship with. So it's like he's an amalgam. Did I say that word right? Anyway, he's a combination of
A
different
blend,
personalities. Do what?
a
A
blend.
blend? Well, now we're going back to Scotch and George's comment. Anyway,
Okay. No, no, no.
but
We
it
don't
was
want
really a
that.
combination. But the way I wrote it in my mind probably had a bit of my accent and a lot of Bill's brain.
That puts it together for me. Okay,
Know
that
about
puts it
that, but
together
I'll
for
take
me.
it.
Bill, you talked way back, I don't know, 20 minutes ago or so, sometime early on this call about the money stories that people tell themselves. And I love that phrase, money stories, because a story is something that you make up, right? A story is something that you tell. In fact, even if you tell a true story, it's still a story you make up because you have to make it up to tell it. I often tell people in the program that a memoir is simply a novel that happens to be true. It isn't a blow by blow recounting of an entire lifespan, right? So when you tell a story, you make it up. What are these stories about money that we make up in our heads that you encounter most often?
Yeah. So another way to think about it is it's our self-talk, right? And
Right.
most psychologists agree that um, most of our money beliefs and assumptions, especially beliefs around money, get hardened around age 7 or 8, pretty young, from
Mm.
parents, guardians. then of course the media piles on, and just society in general pile on. But that's the story, and we tell ourselves a lot of stories about a lot of things, right? We tell ourselves a story about our relationships with other people, about our weight, about our success. We all tell that's what's going on. It's the Buddhists call monkey mind. So we got all these stories going on, and we have a story around money. And so the limiting ones usually are based in lack and fear. So a couple of that come out in the book. One of the first ones that come up is that money is a zero-sum game. It's a scarce resource. If you have it, I don't. If I have it, you don't. Why are these guys robbing the bank? Well, Dylan says that they want to just get theirs, right? And so what we know, and we've got actually, if you get the book, you get access to the vault. I should mention the vault. In the vault are some other tools that we put together, so the book wouldn't be so big, but we could still provide great information. And one of the things in the vault is money, the ever-flowing river of money, the flow. And so what we know about money, and when you learn how money works, by the way, you can learn about your own false story. So that's what happened for me, is my financial education shed light on my beliefs that were inaccurate. And so with money, we know that money flows. Money is not a scarce resource. Now, it may feel scarce in your pocket or bank account. I get that. That's real. You got to deal with it. But money in general is a flow. In fact, the word currency is derived from Old English of curren or currens. It's a flow. And Jeff didn't even know that, by the way. When he put in the book, you got to jump into the river, right? You got to get into the river. And so it's just kind of came together very naturally in that regard. And so we've got a guide around that. What is one, people say, all right, so how do you get in the flow? Well, part of it is stop seeing it as a scarce resource and realize that everyone can get in the flow. But I'll tell you how I got into my flow, just as one example. One way to make money is to help other people make money. That's one of many ways to get into the flow. And that was an aha experience that I had, and I've done well doing that.
Wow. Can you repeat that? That is worth gold. Say that one more time, please.
What I just said? No. Well, so one way to get in the flow of money is to help other people make money. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Fabulous.
And there's lots of ways to do it, but that's one of them.
Yep.
And to shift to an abundance attitude. And I'm actually working on that now. We're going to do kind of a compendium guide where, I realize in this that we're showing people some, mistaken beliefs, unhelpful emotions, all that. We're giving them a sense of what they can do differently. And there's more. And so I'm working on it now on a compendium. So what else? How do you replace these beliefs? One of the things that I do is this anxiety I feel around money. I don't need to feel anxiety around money. I got it from my parents. I feel it. It may never go away. We can't rewrite our brain. We can only overwrite parts of our brain. And so that part may always be there, but I just reach to that metaphorical volume knob and turn the volume down. So that was one of them. One other one that I like is, messages we get from other folks and society. Like, for instance, money is the root of all evil. People think they're quoting the Bible when they say that. Actually, they're misquoting Timothy, where it says the love of money is all evil. And I would suggest, and I'm not even thinking that that's what they meant. I think it's the attachment to money. It's the belief that money is the end, that money is the power, money is what's going to bring you happiness and salvation, all that. That's that love of money, that attachment to money can create evil. There's no question about that. So again, and one guy I interviewed, sorry to ramble, I'll shut up a second. His father was resentful of people who had a lot of money. And that belief was infused into my friend Michael. And so you can't become what you resent. You can't become what you despise, because cognitive dissonance will kick in and you'll stop 99% of the time, unless you've got some psychotic disorder. And so he had to overcome that. He had to overcome that message that rich people are greedy and selfish. And I'll finish this with one line that Jeff brought to the book that I just love, and I use it and I live it in my life now. When we talked about stereotypes in the book, we talked about, rich people are greedy and selfish and they lie and all that, right? And then poor people are lazy and don't care and, ambivalent and all that. And Jeff's line is, some are, most aren't. Because usually there's a kernel of truth to a stereotype, right? There's a reason the stereotype gets created.
Mm-hmm.
But then what we do with that, can actually
Generalize it, right?
and can become, destructive or harmful or, certainly not helpful. And so I love Jeff's, some are, most aren't. And now I use that with my wife, and she says, yeah, you're just quoting from your book.
But that is a brilliant 4-word mantra. I just think about the present day social media world and political socio dialogue.
Yes.
What a valuable reflex that would be to develop when you hear that people are this way, people are that way. Well, some are, probably not very many.
Yeah.
Most aren't.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a real gift from the book.
Can we look at the questions real quick? Make sure we don't go by.
You got it. You got it. Don has an interesting question, which I'm going to boil it down to say this. In a situation where you arrive at a later stage of life, in your 60s, in your 70s, in your 80s, he says 70s, and for whatever reason, you haven't had the opportunity or taken it earlier to take advantage of compounding interest. Here you are. You're late in life. What is the best approach for someone in that position who doesn't have the advantages of decades of compounding growth ahead of them?
So a couple of things combined, Jeff. I'll let you chime in too, of course. And I do have to have one little caveat here.
Right.
John introduced me as a financial advisor. I am not a financial advisor.
I bit my tongue after I said that.
It's okay. It's okay. I've helped financial advisors bring in billions of dollars, and I've been in that world for 33 years. And I've done just about all the work one can do with a financial advisor.
He advises advisors.
I advise advisors. I guess that's true. So Don, I'm not going to have a perfect answer for you here, but I'm going to have a couple thoughts. Number one, expenses. I was on a golf course with a friend of mine just the other day, and we were talking a little bit about our money situations. And one of the things we need to look at from time to time is our expenses. And he said, I've cut everything I can cut. And I said, no, you haven't. You've cut everything you're willing to cut. So that's one thing we got to look at. The other thing we got to look at is, where is our money now? Is it in a place where it can earn more interest? The good news is interest rates in certain vehicles are a little higher now than they used to be. So for example, there's I own something called a buffered ETF, and it's perfect for someone our age, Don, because there's no downside, there's only upside. And so every year at the end of the close of the year, if the market is down 1% or 40%, I lose nothing. I cannot lose money in this buffered ETF. If the market goes up, I can earn as much as 18%. Now, some years the market goes up a little higher than 18%, but not a lot. And so it's a pretty good tool because you don't want to be taking too much risk at this age. You may want to take a little bit more than you would normally, because especially depending on what your number is and what you need. But you got to be careful. So my final advice to you is, or two pieces, is one, find a really good reputable financial advisor. Find someone who's a CFP, a certified financial planner, and they'll be aware of all the different things that one can do in this. And the other thing is, if you got the energy, man, I'm 74. I'm helping people make money, right? I'm making money, helping people make money. Now, this book came out of a labor of love. This is legacy work for me. If we make money, great. But I've done other things, and I'm continuing to do other things. So if you can get into a side hustle or somehow help other people make money and get better at that, and you can do that and using your mind, you can work for another 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. You can do okay for yourself. Jeff, anything to add to that? Not a perfect answer, Don, but that's what comes to mind.
Well, Don, you and I are in similar age brackets. I know we're relatively close there. And what I'll tell you on my end is I'm an idiot when it comes to picking my own things. I am in this as a writer and to help bring a story to life that will teach the points that Bill really wanted to make in the storyline. And I knew a lot of those myself because I used to teach a financial management class to my independent agents in the insurance industry because I knew if I didn't teach them how to handle money on a fluctuating income,
Nobody
I
would.
was going to lose a lot more
Wait a
of them.
second. You had to teach insurance professionals how to manage their money?
Isn't that amazing?
Oh, interesting. Okay, I'm just
But
taking note.
so what I did in my case, Don, I'm one of those guys that I bought stock in a donut company about a month before the low carb craze hit. So I'm not good at that. But my best friend is my financial advisor, and he has done fantastic for me. So whatever amount that you are putting into that, you get someone that you trust that you know is going to know where you are in life and follow their advice.
Yeah.
Oh, I saw a question I wanted to bring up real
You got
quick.
you're going to do Ben's question?
Yes, Ben's question
Yeah, yeah, good.
is, and Ben, I'm going to kind of paraphrase your question just in case somebody hasn't read the story yet. But there are physical characteristics that I gave to Alden Beckett, and was there any specific reason? It's an interesting detail of that. Twofold. First off, I absolutely have to give credit to my wife. My wife, when I'm coming up with a storyline, I'll often kind of banter around with her. Okay, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And as a matter of fact, the entire storyline on Streetwise to Saleswise came as we were sitting in New Orleans drinking a glass of wine, watching a singer, and we talked about it. So, but in this particular case, I'd mentioned the bank robbery to her. I told her how we were going to kind of proceed. And when I mentioned the bank robbery to her, she reminded me of our mutual friend, a guy named John Johnson, and about a bank. He was the person I talked about earlier he went through a bank robbery, and I interviewed him.
Hmm.
I gave Alden the same characteristics John was experiencing the day of the bank robbery. If that answers your question good enough, so I don't have to spoil it.
These gifts that come to a novelist or a parable is also a piece of fiction. Really, a parable is a miniature novel, basically.
Right.
Um, the gifts that come from real life happenstance and circumstance, little details that you pluck off the street and from people that you know, sometimes just drop in your lap because I won't say any more than you did, but those particular characteristics that you gave Alden happen to work beautifully in the story. And it's one of those places where you want to say you can't make this stuff up, even though you did.
Right.
Right, right, right.
Right. You know,
And
Gary had a good question. Go
you
ahead.
took it off the board, but I want to know about the money in your suitcase, Bill.
Yeah, yeah. My personal trainer Todd asked me about that. He asked if it was an advance from the publisher, and I said, "Well, since I'm the publisher, the answer would have to be yes."
Yeah.
Um, so I'm working on a TEDx talk that's kind of based on some of the similar things we're talking about here, and this is a prop that I'm going to use in my talk. This is $1 million. This is what $1 million in a briefcase looks like, and people want to know, okay, oh, is it real? Well, the answer is 12 of the $100 bills are real because I recorded a video, a TV show 2 weeks ago, and it was a prop on the TV show. And so I knew if the camera zoomed in, even though the fake money that looks like this looks pretty dang real, if it gets zoomed in by a high def TV camera, I want it to be really real. So yeah, so that's $1,200 plus a bunch of fake money, and it's a and I why not be surrounded by money if that's something, not money for greed, right? One of Alden's quotes, by the way, um, money is meant to be used. People are meant to be loved. The trouble starts when we reverse the two. And that's a little guiding principle as we talk about money. This is not money for greed or power over others. It's money to be used to better our life and the lives of others around us.
What a
Amen.
fabulous, fabulous quote that is. Man.
You know, Gary Krebs had a question, and this is the perfect three people to be talking about this. He said, "Could you talk a little bit about the difference in writing a parable, writing fiction, and writing nonfiction?" And the three of us have all done all three. So I'll toss it out. I know from the parable side of things, I want to write a parable that is a mini novel. I don't want to do anything that's not that. That's just the way I am. That's how I want to create a story. That's what I want to do. And so then working in how the lessons get taught for me is working in how could somebody find themselves in a situation where they needed to learn that lesson. How much would they push back? Because as I've learned from my good mentor sitting on the screen here, if the protege doesn't push back, it's not going to make a good story. And so
Right.
you have to do all of that. But for me, it's in my thinking, the story comes first and the lessons have to be equally good as they go in.
Honestly, I'll tell you, fiction, nonfiction, as different as they seem to be, and there are differences for sure. And for that matter, novel and parable, big story, little story, despite all the difference in them, and those are real, it's surprisingly how much they're the same. It's surprising how much they are the same process. It's kind of like human beings. There are differences among different human beings, but there's like 99 under our surface, 99% between us that's identical. We're all the same person. We have these little differences that can become exaggerated. But
Mm.
that's the same thing with writing. Writing is writing. Writing comes down to your heart, your passion, your lived experience, and your core beliefs, and
Mm.
putting those on the page in the format of whatever you happen to be doing. And Bill, you may have more to add to that as well.
Well, I've written 6 nonfiction books, and this is my first book that had anything to do remotely with actually telling a story in this way, at least.
Yeah.
And that's why I knew I needed help. So the others I wrote myself. I love learning. I love teaching. I kind of can get into the flow. It's not that difficult for me occasionally, but it's all right. But knowing that I had to bring characters to life, I actually dabbled and tried at that a little bit. It would have been one of those bad parables that you talk about. And by the way, in the chat, I don't know if you guys are seeing. Uh, let's see, was it Susie said this? Yeah, my friend Susie. If people ask me about the money, are those real? My response should be some are, most aren't.
Good
and
one.
and then Ben asked the question about the most fulfilling money decision you've made
Yeah.
this year, any year. Well, here's just in general, Ben. Let me answer that question. Um, Here's what I learned a long time ago, and I'm actually living this out through my daughter, my especially my grandniece and grandnephew. Um, is that, and this is proven in neuroscience, etc., that the happiness derived from an experience is much more than the happiness derived from a thing, from buying an object, whether it's a car or a piece of jewelry or a new sofa or whatever. There's a little bit of joy that comes from that. Yeah, it feels good. I get it. Um, and much more pleasure and happiness from experiences, and it's the experiences that you remember. So the happiness that will come from that will linger with you much longer. And so for me, it's been travel, a lot of adventure travel, some tourism travel. So the best investments, and I will call it an investment in money that I've made, has been through travel. Again, adventures on my own with buddies and with my wife. Um, the things, nice. I like nice things. Nothing wrong with liking nice things, as long as you realize. See, the mistake I did make a while ago was I there was a time and when I linked my self-worth to my net worth.
Mm.
It's a game that a lot of people play, and as I became more successful, I think somewhere along the line I felt I needed to show other people that I was becoming successful.
Mm.
So I got a car. There's a little, more than I needed. I was measuring my self-worth by square footage of my house. Um, so I fell into that trap that so many people fall into. Luckily, it didn't consume me, and I didn't get into trouble financially because of it, which some people do get into trouble financially. But that's kind of what I meant by the book, and why I wrote the book, is for all of us to become aware of that stuff that's there that doesn't serve us, and that we decide to write a new story. So
I just want to mention something, a quick note on something you said earlier, Bill, about beliefs are negative or self-limiting beliefs. And that is simply this, that a lot of us, go through times when we're anxious about money, and being anxious is understandable. We know we're anxious about it, or being fearful about it. Those are emotions. But a belief is a deeper thing. A belief is often something that we're not even aware of, whereas emotions we usually are aware of. A belief is this, my story of this is how things are, right? The world is not fair. Rich people are evil. Money is hard to get. I don't deserve more than 100 grand a year. I'll never make quite enough to make ends meet. I'll never make enough to be comfortable, give my, et cetera, et cetera. This is how it is. And the thing that is so pervasive and insidious about a money belief is that we often aren't even aware we're holding it. So let me just ask this question. How can we become aware of what stories we're telling ourselves?
Two main ways that I've observed. Um, for myself, it was mostly through education of learning how money works.
Hmm.
And when I learned how money works, and then I'd reflect back, like, so one of the things we address in the book is just the age-old miracle of compounded interest.
Yeah.
Albert Einstein is quoted as saying that it's the eighth wonder of the world. Those who understand it earn it; those who don't pay it. Now, there's no evidence he actually said that except for the memes on the internet.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
but
Pretty good
when
line, though.
it is a good line, and it's true. But so for me, it was at money education. And
Yeah.
the more I learned about money, how it actually worked and reading up on it, then I started to be aware of my limiting beliefs and mistaken assumptions. And then I became a little more introspective on that. Another way, I have a very close friend of mine. She may actually be on this call, who came about it in a different way. She is just one of the most incredibly introspective and seeking and growth oriented people I know on this planet. And she did the work, she did the inner work
Yeah.
and became aware of, and she had already had a lot of success, but she became aware of some of the other things that were keeping her back. So I interviewed a gal, Tammy Lally, for my podcast, and Tammy has a podcast that has not a podcast, sorry, a TED Talk has 2.3 million views. I'm playing golf with Tammy this Thursday, and hers is all about money shame. I didn't realize that was a thing
Hmm.
because that wasn't my experience, uh, but it's a lot of other people's experience. So, to my education and introspection, and with a willingness to do the work, the willingness to give up
Hmm.
old beliefs. There's a lot of letting go that has to take place, and when our identity is with that. Here's the neat thing: is money intersects all aspects of one's life, right? There isn't a part of one's life that money doesn't touch in some form or another. So that when we change our money story, we change our life, literally.
Hmm.
Um, I know we're running thin on time. We got a couple other questions here. I don't know. Jeff,
Let
you
me,
want
let
to
me
add
add
to that,
something.
by the way?
Yeah, let me add just a couple of things to that.
Please, please.
One of my favorite things about what this book has the potential to do is we're challenged some of the things that we all grow up believing, and we
Yeah.
challenge the idea of just accepting that. Because what happens in society, when you see a movie or a television show and there's a wealthy person presented on that show, how many times are they presented as a good person?
Yeah.
Almost never. It's presented they're sneaky, they're this or that. And it really, it's not subliminal, it's there, but people don't challenge it. And as we get older, and I think, and especially in today's times, we need to challenge everything we see. We don't need to accept anything as just being factual. We need to challenge. Okay, does this make sense? Is this right? Because we got too much of misinformation going out everywhere.
Hmm.
And this book, if I were to send something from my mouth to God's ears and back down to the world, is I really want to see this book change how people grow up thinking about money, how they, as young adults, because I can see people my age buying this for their adult children. I gave
Yes.
my copy so I didn't have to buy them, but same process because I want Bill's message that he's trying to get up because people really do deserve to make financial decisions that are in their best interest, but they don't know how yet. And to me, that's the the greatest potential is changing how people perceive their relationship with money.
Amen. And that would be a great closing line for this launch party. Although, Bill, I agree. We want to get to that last question, but it's not a
Well,
bad question. It's a great one.
yeah. I got my also great sex. Yeah, Vikram was talking about the psychology of money. That's also a great book. Agree, 100%. So Machen says, can you say a little more about how you unhooked your self-worth from net worth? Uh, Machen, I kind of addressed it a little bit, but it's the education, it's the awareness, really.
Yeah.
And I would also have to say the self-honesty of realizing that, yeah, okay, I bought that big Lexus. I could have bought a Toyota version of it. You know what I mean? I bought a little bigger house in my neighborhood. I could have bought the other one. And some of that was ego. Some of that was, now, do I like a house with high ceilings and a lot of light? Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. I believe there's nothing wrong with enjoying a good space. And was part of that decision also influenced by this other devil on my other shoulder? Yeah, it was. And so it's the awareness of it is the main thing. And we know the power of awareness because that's where all change starts, is the awareness. And then just, and then working on it, buddy, and then turning the volume down when it plays.
Yeah.
And not letting myself get into trouble because of it too. So which I do.
And I want to echo what Jeff said. I think that, that getting involved in the story, in this particular story, the Hidden Heist, it's a way of unearthing the stories you got in your own head and getting to see them, getting to feel them, getting to experience them, and getting on a path to change. That's what a great book does. That's what a great novel does. That's what a great parable does, and that's what this book does for sure. So hey, look at this. All these links are in the chat. So, folks, if you haven't already opened the chat window, you may want to open that now just to
Yeah, I'm going to
record.
actually copy and share that again, Jeff, because I just overwrote it. So Jeff put a lot of links in the chat. Let me do it again.
Coming
I'm
again.
not sure
Here
that
it is.
mine goes out. I think it goes to you guys. So
I put it out to everybody.
good.
Oh, I see. Excellent.
I
So,
I
yes.
can't thank you, John David Mann, for hosting this. Uh, Bob Berg's got nothing on you. And
Poor Bob's probably at
maybe
home
eventually
listening.
he'll be able to afford his own internet service, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. We're rooting for it. Yeah.
And Jeff, here's a virtual handshake to my fellow author who could not have done it without you, without exception. Is no question. And to everybody else, I'll just say, look, if you like the book, share the wealth. Don't keep it a secret. We know that promoting the book will help give it a good spark. Eventually, the book's going to have to do the work, and the people who read the book will have to do the work. And we're hoping that that takes off. So, any parting words, Jeff?
Yes, the whole process to you, Bill, I'll tell you, has just been a joy. I have enjoyed us becoming friends. I have enjoyed the whole relationship. I think we've produced something we can be very proud of. And to you, John, I owe you more than I could ever say on the last couple of minutes of a program. But you are definitely my hero when it comes to writing and my trusted friend when it comes to my mentor and how I write. And thank you for elevating it so highly. Thank you.
All right.
Back
Thanks,
at you.
everybody.
Jen, it's been an honor and a pleasure. Take care, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.